As a result of her studies of human rights, Rhonda Mary quickly became a Second Amendment advocate. She has spent the last few years educating others on the human rights, particularly black women, which are often left out of the gun right conversation. But first, if you have legal matters that involve firearms, then you need to call our California firearms lawyer, John Dillon. If you have questions about red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, or maybe you just need to know that your guns are California compliant, call our trusted firearms attorney, John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. You can call him at 760-642-7150 or visit his website at dillonlawgp.com.
All right. Our first guest is Rhonda Mary. She is a YouTuber, a Second Amendment advocate, and a podcaster. Rhonda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Can't complain.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, tell us, how did you become a YouTuber?
Oh, wow. So, well, for a while, people have been telling me that I should start a YouTube, and people would say, do a YouTube about, like, hair or makeup or something like that. I'm like, that's totally not me. But at the time, I would be on Facebook just talking about all these different, like, political and social topics, and people would seem to get riled up. And for some reason, I just feel like, well, maybe if I just explain it in a longer format, people can get a better understanding of what I'm saying. So I decided to start doing YouTube, just talking about, political content, things that were going viral on social media and all of this. And, well, the thought that people would understand me more or better was not exactly the case. But I was able to kind of, like, build a following and make connections and find other people, across the country and within my demographic and without that agreed with me, and started somewhat becoming a voice for some people that may have felt like me but felt like they couldn't really stand up and speak about some of these topics. So that's how it started.
Yeah, I get people encourage me all the time to start YouTube channels about hair and makeup too. I totally get where you're coming from. But I don't know, you have a talent, So how did you, what got you interested in politics and social issues?
It's not one particular thing. I've always kind of, even as I was in grade school, I've always kind of been more outspoken and willing to share my thoughts. And so that was just what I was into at the time. And I guess I felt like I was way more willing than kind of like the average person to sometimes be controversial, not necessarily intentionally, but just because of the way that things have been polarizing and censored and all of these other things. And so, I was just willing to step up and speak about some of these things.
What part of the country are you in?
I'm from Mississippi, born and raised.
How would you describe your politics? Are you do you fit in a particular box, or what are some of your hot button topics too?
Well, one of my biggest videos, which was a few years ago now, I think maybe 4 to 6 years at this point, was my walk away video, where I talked about how I was, just starting to realize and take notice that a lot of the things that I had been told and taught by mainstream leftist media was either not true or either something that I didn't really actually identify with when I really started to break down some of these, things. And so now I would say that I'm way more conservative leaning, but, I don't ascribe to any particular party at this time. I would say I'm more independent, and I really enjoy listening to politicians say what they actually stand for instead of just allowing certain messages to be parroted to me, kind of listening and looking at the things when, I don't know, sometimes the media is telling us, look the other way. They didn't mean it like that. They didn't say it like that. That's not really what they meant, and so I think that's just super important and something that I've tried to get across to people.
Well, so what's a message that you were fed or given that was maybe when you were growing up that you discovered really wasn't true? Like what's something specific that you were kind of that was maybe forced on you through media that you just found out, hey, you know what? It's not like that at all.
That Democrats are virtuous, immoral, like just because, like, you know, and that's just not the case. And one of the things that I've learned during this time is that when you look like me, a young black woman, I have red hair, I have the nose ring, I'm not, you know, people automatically put me in a box. They assume that I'm going to think a certain way, and then I go on a platform like Jubilee, and now you have all of these white liberals, unfortunately, attacking me for my views and telling me, how dare you think like this as a black woman? This is so embarrassing. And I'm like, who are you to tell me to think like anything? And so that's been one of the biggest eye-openers, is that the media will push, listen to black women, you know, and all of these other things, these very pandering tones. But then when you actually speak and it goes against the narrative that's been pressed upon you, it's like, oh, no, not you. You set up. Maybe the black lady behind you. I don't know. Let's give her a chance. Let's try it.
Maybe they should be more specific as to exactly which black lady they're talking about, I guess.
I mean, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. This monolith. Even when, you know, Joe Biden can say things like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, or
so when
y'all learn like the Hispanics, you know, they're actually like not a monolith. They're actually like different. And it's like, what the world? That is so offensive.
What was it like when he said that? Because I remember when he said that. I don't know if you were thinking about voting for him or not at the time, but when he said that, what went through your head?
I actually wasn't surprised. Like, if this was years and years ago, I may have been surprised. But before this journey of learning and unlearning, I'm like, yeah, this goes perfectly, you know, with his record. And one thing I noticed is that some of these characters, they try to recreate so different generations see or remember them differently, or they may try to paint them differently. But when you look at the history of who Joe Biden has actually been, and not just what, you know, this pretty picture that's been painted, it's right on par.
Mm-hmm. Every bit of it. Absolutely.
Every bit of it.
So I found a picture of your red hair. Look, Dave.
Yeah, that's cute as a button.
Look at her red hair.
No one would ever.
Oh, you're cute. Look at your hair.
No one would ever think she's packing.
Okay, so you're wearing a shirt that says "Entertainers are not leaders." Tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah. So I actually got that from Malcolm X, who specifically, there was a message that he was giving to the black community, and he was just expressing how you would have these different faces that would be invited to the White House to speak to the White House on behalf of the black community, and they would call these people black leaders. And he would say that just because you play a trumpet, just because you tell a joke, does not make you a leader.
Yeah. And
it's just this reminder that even now, if we look at freaking Matthew McConaughey,
yeah, that's exactly what came to mind.
You know, it goes way beyond, race at this point, but we have a culture now, especially our young people. Young people are so engulfed in like entertainment, and social media is so popular, and it's so cumbersome, and it's so encompassing that a lot of people are getting attached to these personalities, and they aren't always good people, or sometimes they're just saying things just to get a check, just to further their career. And so a lot of times we just can't take what they're saying at face value. We have to look at their deeds and their actions over time, and if the values of their life actually reflect the things that they espouse to believe in.
Yeah, when Matthew I hate it when they do that. I hate it when they put some some movie star up to talk about a very serious public policy issue. And I'm going, why are we listening? I mean, this guy, the all right guy, like what? Why are we listening to him on something so complicated, such a complicated social and And people would say to me, well, what do you disagree? What did he say that you disagree with? It doesn't matter. I just disagree that we're putting him up there like he knows something. That's ridiculous.
Like he's an expert.
Yeah. Why don't we ask Matthew Broderick what he thinks about truancy? He was in Ferris Bueller, so he's an expert. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's truly offensive. It's just absolutely asinine that they do that. I'm so glad that you call them out on that.
Yes, thank you.
Are you sure? Are you sure you're not a sister to Candace Owens?
No. I'm not a sister to Candace Owens. I think we may have bumped into each other at an event.
But you guys kind of work from the same direction. Extremely intelligent. You know your topics, and I think the left is taking, your folks, the girls mainly, for granted, and they just ignore it. And I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, something that I think is super important, like I said early on about us not being painted as a monolith.
Right.
I think that especially where I'm from, like what would be considered the deep South, and actually you have the biggest population of Black people, spanning across the South, is that you have these different varying degrees of conservative values.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of time we don't really talk about or take advantage of that. And I don't mean take advantage of that in a negative way, but I mean use that to spread principles of liberty, of freedom, of supporting and protecting the Constitution and all of these other things, and making it relatable to everyday people, regardless of demographic, regardless of religion, skin color, and things like this. Is some of those things that there's a commonality there.
Right.
It all comes back to actual value.
Right. Hey, do you have jewelry that you don't wear anymore? Maybe a watch that's just getting dusty, or maybe it doesn't even work. Well, what if you went to Leo Hamill's, sold it? You could use that cash to get a gun, take a pistol class that you've been talking about. Let's do it. When you sell your used jewelry or watches to Leo Hamill, not only do you get the best deal, you are also supporting a Second Amendment customer or owner. So one of the easiest ways to support Second Amendment is to support our partners like Leo Hamill. Give them a call at 619-299-1500. Or you can visit their showroom on San Diego Avenue and always get an awesome service at Leo's.
We're talking to YouTuber Rhonda Mary about all kinds of cool stuff, politics, and let's talk about guns, Rhonda. How'd you get into guns?
So, unfortunately, I was actually in a hit-and-run / road rage whole type of fiasco incident.
Jeez. I'm glad you're okay. Were you okay?
Yeah, I was okay. I think, I had like a little soreness in my neck or something like that, but overall I was okay. My car was kind of scratched up, but an irate driver he decided I wasn't driving fast enough for him, so he decided to try to push, me off the highway as I was driving.
Wow.
And at some point, we both pulled over, and he got out of his car and he walked up to my window and was just going crazy, just going at me. And I just remember in that moment, he was so close to me. I could see the ring around his eyes. He was like an older guy. And I just kept thinking, if something happens to me on the side of the road, like how would my family even know what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And the responding officer was a young Black woman, and she ended up saying, she was like, where was your gun? You could have said you feared for your life. And I was like, what? And it was like a light bulb went off. And, it was just this thought, this idea that, first of all, we weren't there to save you. We were there to write the report. That's number one. Number two is this idea that you have way more autonomy than you've been allowed to believe that you actually have. Like, you get a say too. And wow. I mean, it's just like a light bulb went off, and a couple of weeks later, I went and got my first firearm, and I started learning like all of these things about firearms and the Second Amendment and the history, as it relates to like the black community, and after slavery, going up into the civil rights and the significance that it played, and all these just different things I was learning. I'm like, I got to tell other people about this.
What did you learn? Like, what's something that stood out that in particular that maybe surprised you or shocked you or horrified you?
Well, one thing that I didn't know is that guns played such a significant role in the civil rights movement.
Yeah. I
had no clue. It's only been painted as this, kumbaya, let's be peaceful, let's keep everything cordial. But when you actually start to look into it, you have people like Martin Luther King, who actually applied for his concealed carry permit, which he was denied from under a May issue state, may I add. And that was just basically overturned recently here, as we see what's happening in New York, that now people are going to be able to conceal. And Clarence Thomas actually referenced a lot of this history in the ruling, talking about how significantly black people had been, the intention was to keep us from having arms, from being able to protect ourselves, particularly after slavery, going up into like the civil rights movements and things like this. And so just learning all of this was blowing my mind that many significant civil rights heroes actually were in support of black people having arms. And then you would have like, it was a backup organization to the NAACP. Their name is not coming to me right now, but they were actually their armed portion of the NAACP. But people don't even talk about that. Like this.
And how cool! I personally think it's enormously significant, and it's not getting talked about enough because he's not a darling of the left. But Clarence Thomas is the grandson or great grandson of slaves.
Yes, grandson, I believe.
Grandson, and he wrote.
Grandson, I'm sorry.
He wrote the Supreme Court decision that just allowed people to carry. They basically got rid of May issue states. I think that's enormously significant. I think it should be a huge source of pride for a lot of people, and I think it's amazing. I think it's really, really great. And no one's talking about it. No one's giving that credit.
No. If anything, they're going the other way.
Yeah, they are.
All the history, like, behind it, and how, just to know that is in the ruling, and now, that is a official part of history, whether people want to try to pretend it's not there and try to ignore it, like, it's stamped in history, and that just gives it another piece of validation.
But Rhonda,
in people's minds.
Rhonda, don't you kind of are a little puzzled why you never learned this in school?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I really can't even say puzzled because I'm smart enough to figure it out now that you don't want people knowing their rights. You don't want people having their rights. You don't want people to know that because it's too empowering. Right. Now you have people like me that I'm just out here. I'm just telling the news and sharing it and helping, motivating other people to become gun owners and to learn about the Second Amendment and learn about all of this rich history.
Well, the thing of it is, the side that doesn't want us to have guns, they were having enough trouble trying to keep the whites under control. And then you guys flared up. It's like, oh, my God, now we have to deal with this group of people. But it tells me that we're getting together as a unit. And they can't fight a group. There's just no way. And we get bigger and bigger and bigger. And once you really learn the true story, it'll just get bigger than they can handle. And that's the goal in my life.
Absolutely. That is absolutely the goal. And with everything we've seen over the last couple of years of them trying to steadily encroach on our freedoms, it's going to be more and more important for people to really understand what we're possibly up against and the reason why they wanted us to have this right in the first place.
What did you think of Joy Behar? Did you hear her comment on The View? She said that
Are we really going to give her airtime?
Well, she said we were talking about changing gun laws.
Just say the lady on The View.
And she said that is when the gun laws will change in the U.S. once black people get guns. What were your thoughts on that? First off, did you hear that, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yes, so I did hear that, and I think it was funny that she was speaking over her black lady co-host and was trying to tell her opinion on guns. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there is some historical context to that. We saw the Black Panthers go on the Capitol steps, and then we saw what happened in California with the gun control measures that soon followed. So there is a historical truth to what she was saying. However, people like Joy will sit there and say things like that, but they won't tell you. They'll tell you all about the past, but they won't tell you what's happening in real time. Mm-hmm. They will not tell you that after 2020, there were more new black gun owners than any other demographic. Okay. Also, more women gun owners as a new demographic. They won't tell you that there are now, I believe, 25 to 26 red states that are constitutional carry states. And when we look at a lot of these states, like I said, particularly the southern states, they have some of the biggest black populations. And then, of course, even I haven't seen the segment, I don't even know if they've covered it, of what recently happened when Clarence Thomas and the rest of the Supreme Court justices were like, nah, we're not going for that. Gun control is racist. We're not feeling it. We're not doing it. And this is our ruling. So they're going to ignore these things that happen in real time because they want to live in the racist past. And if people like Joy Behar think that it's so racist because, as soon as more black people get guns, they're going to, you'll see more gun control. Well, Joy Behar, why would you want to stand on the side of those people? That's the real question we need to be asking.
Good for you. I mean, are people, first off, is this our Second Amendment? Is that kind of is that your main political topic, or what are some other hot button items that you talk about?
Oh my goodness, I talk about everything. I talk about music. I talk about entertainment. Recently, my Twitter has been on fire because I've been talking about the whole abortion thing here recently. So I pretty much cover it all. As far as my Instagram, I have two. I have a main one that mostly focuses on Second Amendment. Is Rhonda_Mary over at Instagram.
Wow. Gotcha.
Just because I've been able to see a lot of growth in that area when I just specifically, honed in on that. But I also have Rhonda Mary Vids, which I talk about, everything. I talk about health and wellness and finances and all of these kind of aspects that make, honestly, our communities better, that we've been taught, these things are not that big of a deal. Or let me find this fire tweet so I can read y'all this tweet that I put today. I said, this is a tweet. My Twitter is I am Rhonda Mary. I said, I just had it. I'm sorry.
Don't you hate that?
Yes.
Here, I thought you were a computer whiz.
I try to be.
No, you don't.
It doesn't always.
Don't you hate that? I swear. And it's not you. It's everybody. Yeah. If I tell Mike to look something up,
then I won't be able to.
That he sent me 3 minutes ago, he'll never find it.
If I don't need it, it'll be right there in front of me.
I know. So, what's your future? What do you got planned? Politics?
Yeah, you gonna run for office?
Everybody keeps asking me, am I gonna?
There's a reason.
Oh gosh, I just don't think I'm up to run for office, but I'm just gonna keep educating people, just trying to reach people. There is something to the representation matters. It's absolutely a thing. When we saw, in the 90s where they took college and made it urban culture, you absolutely saw an explosion of college and, college degrees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that is a thing. I just want to keep focusing on that.
Hey, stay in touch with us. We'd like to see, chat with you down the road to see how what the trail provides.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.